you have to listen to what your clients want and really listen, ask questions, things like that. I do know that the relationship side of things and building the trust, to me, is going to be the future of this industry.
Real estate agents, welcome back to the RMG Agent Podcast. I am your host, Reed Moore, and we are going to do another episode of the Master Series. I would love for you to go back and check out all the ones we've done with good friends like Matt Miali, Keith Riddle, Nick Waldner. We have just some fantastic people who have just given us their time and their mastery here to help you get better. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you. So to get more from the podcast, go to rmgagentpodcast.com. Go anywhere that you watch or listen to podcasts like YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, reach out to us, share it, and all the other things. We're here to help. And today I have another and just incredibly special guest, one of my best friends, and somebody that I think is absolutely worth listening to, especially when it comes to just the highest level of customer care and engagement and repeat and referral business. So I want you guys to welcome to the show my dear friend and master of real estate, Jon Walker.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So you ready to live up to that billing?
I need to get that recorded so I can carry it around with me. Great intro.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so one of the things we always like to ask people, right, is if you put just false humility aside, the reality is your results over many, many years speak for themselves. How long have you been in real estate now?
Since 2009.
Since 2009.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're one of the old dogs like me.
Yes.
And you just have carved out an incredible business by taking great care of people, taking care of your network. So if I were just to ask you, like, put false humility aside and just say, Jon, why should a real estate professional listen to you? What would you say?
Whew, right out of the gate with a tough question. I would say longevity. I've been able to grind it out in this business for a long time, good times, bad times. And another thing is, I would say that all the mistakes that agents are making or are going to make, I've probably already made them, and I've learned my lesson, like a lot of the other agents you've had on this podcast. Okay,
so you said something that piqued my interest, and that is when we hear the word like grind, typically we associate that with cold callers, hardcore prospectors. That's not you.
It is not me.
So what would somebody who takes such great care of repeat and referral business, what is the reason you would say grind it out?
Well, especially from the get-go, right? Like I had to build relationships, and I started in this business part-time. So I wanted to get to full-time, but I had to work my way there. Okay. And so I had to start out of the gate just building relationships. I was never a cold calling type person. I don't even like being on the phone, to be honest with you. But, it's something I had to do something, and I felt building relationships, which I was able to build through my last career, which helped me start. But I think that was the biggest thing, is just building relationships and continuing to grow those relationships and keep building new relationships.
So what did you do before real estate, and what was that transition like?
So I used to manage at a lumber yard. I started there as a kid and kind of built my way, worked my way up. So when I left, I was an assistant manager at a lumber yard, and so built some great relationships, built with contractors, with, do-it-yourselfers, and built friendships with these people because I was there for so long that it helped kickstart my real estate career, because once they knew I was transitioning to real estate, they still wanted to do business with me and keep that relationship going, so it's helped.
So what about the way that you showed up at that job do you think caused people to want to follow you in business and real estate?
Consistent. I was consistent, answering my phone, things like that was one thing I noticed in real estate that I always, heard rumors like realtors don't ever call you back. I'm like, well, that's easy. I had to answer my phone all the time. So yeah, it was just building the relationship to where I built that trust, to where even though I was unable to build a house or unable to probably build a deck, I was able to at least guide them in a way to where they understood it, and it was a friendly exchange of just relationship stuff.
I think about my first 6 years in real estate, I didn't hear the word lead generation. I didn't come from a sales background. I didn't know anything about a pipeline. I didn't know anything about what to say. I just was, I built relationships and kind of fumbled through it.
Yes.
Was there a period of time where you just kind of fumbled through, and then was there an event that all of a sudden you realized, there's a more systematic, smarter way to do this?
Yeah, once I moved over to Keller Williams, I got a better idea of what all that was. My previous brokerage was great people, but they just thought differently. And once I got over to Keller Williams, things just changed, right? Like Chase Williams, who we both know, he committed to helping me double my business in my first year, and I thought that was a pretty big goal of going.
Did you do it?
Close, real close. Close enough to where I'm like, hey, this stuff works. So, and understanding like the pipelines and understanding like a database and things like that, it's just not knowledge that I really had previous to real estate. So it was a learning curve, and there was a lot of mistakes made. But you know what? Those mistakes got me to where I'm at today. So I guess I'll deal with those. Yeah.
So you're 15 years in now, and you've been very consistent, a consistent top producer in the area, consistently high rated with your reviews. I'm just all of that consistency, right? Kind of going back to your original comment. Walk us through like looking back, maybe you kind of just did it naturally, but looking back, if you were to say, here's how I took care of people, here's how I took care of the network that I built. Yeah. What would you say? What's step one?
Step one is listening, right? Like, obviously once you start getting to the home buying process, you have to listen to what your clients want and really listen, ask questions, things like that. Those are things that I had to learn along the way. But I think once I got better at that, it helped me even more throughout my career in other things, but it really helped. It really helped my I guess the verbiage is, it really helped increase my transactions and things like that.
So you have people in our industry who, they say like, if you ask somebody who doesn't actually know what's going on in their business, where their business come from, they'll say,
family, friends.
Yeah, and the reality is they have no idea. They're just stumbling across a business. But I've seen your numbers. You legitimately work your sphere. You drive value there, and you have kind of a predictable business around that. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, it took time to build it, right? Like just like anything else, right? Like you got to work hard. Even your first 5 years in the industry are pretty important. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to have to work hard. But building and continuous relationships are huge. And I just like to make sure that, I'm providing value to my friends and clients, and that I'm making sure that I'm reaching out to them in a consistent manner. And that they know that I'm not just calling them to sell them a real estate, get a real estate transaction out of it. I care about them. I care about their families. I care about what's going on in their lives. So a lot of times the conversation has nothing to do with real estate. It's just me calling them saying, hey, what's going on?
So how do you evidence that, right? So if you talk to any real estate agent, they will all tell you the same stuff, which is I care about my clients and I care about this. But then like the audio doesn't always match the video. Yeah. So how do you match those up in a way that actually develops trust?
Getting past just the real estate stuff and not just focus on like, hey, how's the real estate market? Those questions come up. Real estate automatically comes up, I think, when you start the conversation. But it's getting into what their hobbies are, getting in. If you see a headline that meets something they're interested in, is sending them those headlines and things like that. Just showing them that they're not just a number.
I love that. It's, one of the things we've talked about on the podcast before is when you help somebody buy or sell a home, you're helping them establish a place, like a pin in a map where their whole life plays out. And so it sounds, if you're not actually doing it with this great heart and this intention to build a relationship, it sounds like, like I send them articles and I do this. But the reality is when you have a relationship with somebody, something piques your interest because you're like, I remember them talking about little Johnny and him playing baseball, and I remember them saying that this person was the person that they wanted to be like, and that person's going to be in town. And, right, because you're just paying attention to their life, which you help facilitate in some small way.
Yeah, and those lead in the referrals, right? Because they they pass the word on how they were treated and how they've been consistently treated by their realtor, who maybe they didn't know at first, and that just helps.
So if you're talking to somebody right now, and let's say they've taken their eye off the ball, the last several years they just had money fall in their lap.
Yeah.
And that's not happening right now. And let's just say, in case there's somebody out there that this is not like any of our listeners, but if somebody was out there was pretending things were good, and they weren't, and they really wanted to have a business like yours, what would you tell them to start doing now?
Well, start with your database, right? Even if you'd be amazed on how many realtors I talk to, and I'm sure you do, that they don't even have any kind of setup database or anything like that. So start small, Start with your phone. You got 800 contacts in your phone. It's like, start with those guys.
Yeah.
And just, even if you're starting now, it's okay, right? Yeah. Because you just got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, is starting and just real estate, it's easy. It's like there's a roadmap, I feel like, to real estate, and even though we try to look for the easy button on that roadmap, there is no easy button. You just got to do it, and just I think just starting is the first step, and then make a call to your database or just your phone, your clients, however you got it. Just make the call. Say hi. What's going on, right? You don't need to talk about real estate. You can. It's not a bad thing to do. Maybe not on the first call, but just ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
What's new in their lives? Like that stuff's important.
It's funny because we always want people, if somebody is gun shy on the phone, they tell themselves a story that I don't need to talk about real estate, and that's not what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, no.
It's paying attention to the nature of the relationship.
Yes.
If somebody knows you, if somebody's in your database, they know you sell real estate. They're not going to be like, "What? You sell real estate?" That's not necessarily part of the beginning of that conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's asking for business is not a bad thing. It's just knowing when and knowing how.
So what would you say, like if you were going to break down a professional relationship, so you have a genuine relationship with somebody, and there's also this element of professionalism, right? We've been talking about that a lot. Like our industry is moving towards professionalism, we think. What are some of the key markers in your mind of a professional relationship as a real estate agent?
Yeah, I mean, there's times where you talk business and there's times where you don't. And if you're going to talk business, just let them know, hey, you got a couple minutes for a business call. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think people, as long as they're not blindsided and they don't feel like you're just calling them, to sell them Amway, I think that it changes the trajectory of the conversation. And ultimately, they're going to want to hear from you. Yeah. And a lot of times the people in your database do want to hear from you, but we tell ourselves a story like they're busy, they don't want to hear from me, things like that. But they do want to hear from you.
What are some missteps that you've made in building relationships as a professional?
A lot. A lot. I think there's times where we get busy and we don't stay as focused as we should. I would say that I've made mistakes is not staying consistent with calling everybody all the time. A lot of times I'm calling the people I really want to talk to.
Yeah. They're easy. Like this one's going to be like, they're going to pick up and it's going to be easy. Yeah. I talked to him 2 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think, and we haven't, we've got a great team. We do well with our clients. Our reviews reflect that, but not every transaction goes perfectly, right? So you gotta just make sure that you maintain that, even if it's not going perfect, that they trust that you're in their corner and that you're going to help them through it, because that's just going to help them think about like, hey, maybe things didn't go perfectly, but they had my back.
Yeah.
So I would be happy to trust them with referring them to a family member, friend.
So what about if you were talking to somebody and they were really wanting to get their network off the ground? They're somebody who they know that their business should be database driven. They know that they should be working out of their network. What are some practical steps? What are some options that a network-based real estate agent should consider as far as action items to build their business?
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Just start with a phone call. Then you're sending them a newsletter, depending on what system you're using, and show them you're offering them value. Don't confuse it that your client's only in your database, because that's not true.
Yeah,
they've clicked on a house on Facebook or what have you. So your client is in other agents' databases. Mm-hmm. It's just who's going to do a better job at building that relationship. And I think that if you're just starting out, hey, start small. Start making sure that you have the information in the database. Have it somewhere. Don't just have it in your phone, because that does not work. Yeah. Have something to where it can give you a reminder of, hey, I need to talk to this person. It's been 30, 60, 90 days. Start small with newsletters, your quarterly calls. You sell your first house. Maybe, help your clients with a housewarming party.
Love it.
How many people, those, you might meet 30 people you would have never met. Sure. So there's things that you can do to help build your database, and there's things that you can do that'll help just help that database grow naturally.
Yeah, so we have those two elements, right? We need to grow our database and we need to take care of or cultivate our database. What are some ways of demonstrating value?
I think of course the one-on-one conversations are the most important in my opinion. Handwritten notes, handwritten, a lot of, not to get off track, but a lot of the listing appointments that I've been able to win over other agents is because when I leave, I write them a handwritten card thanking them for their time, and that's helped them. So that's starting that relationship off just like that. And I think client events are important, but they don't need to be big. Like you just need to be able to get in a room with these people, have a good reason to want to contact them, and just let them know that, hey, I'm not just here to sell you something. I want to have this relationship for 20 years. Most likely you're going to buy and sell another home, but there's a chance that you won't. And I'm okay with that because the relationship's still going to stay the same no matter what.
Yeah. So one of the hard things about people who have built a really good network or database driven business is over the course of time and mastery, they actually just kind of embody it. It's like they're not just lead generating for 2 or 3 hours. It's like they're always being themselves.
Yes.
Right? And so when you get in a room with people who have been doing real estate at a high level for a long time and have been taking care of people for a long time, it's hard to translate that into what to do because it's just like it becomes who you are over time. Right? So if you were going to break down who you've become over time in a way that you would want to, teach somebody, like here are the things that I do like on a weekly basis. So Jon wakes up on Monday or Sunday, whenever you start kind of your thinking through the week, walk us through just how the flow of the week is. And it doesn't need to be like necessarily all just time blocks, but how do you think through taking care of people during a week?
I focus every week. I'm out to meet new people every week. Right.
Okay.
This is how my database is going to grow. It's not going to just grow with transactions. It's going to grow with me meeting people. I know nobody at my office wants to buy a house from me.
Yes.
So a lot of times if I'm not at the office, I'm either, sitting at a Starbucks or, I take clients golfing, I like enjoy that. So it's like I'm doing things, I'm putting myself in positions to meet new people to help my database grow.
So your whole week is wrapped around this idea of I need to meet new people.
Yes.
Okay, so that's fascinating to me because you're kind of like you're one of those mayor kind of guys. Like like the assumption is Jon already knows enough people.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the way that you structure your week is I need to go meet new people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll focus on making sure I stay in contact with the people that I already know, but that database has got to grow somehow. And if I'm not paying for leads and things like that, the way it's going to grow is for me and my team to go out and meet new people.
Yeah. Right.
And not just focus on our transaction. Like every time we sell a home that we just meet that person. It's like, there's people everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
You got a hobby. I'm sure you're going to meet people. Just make an effort. Make it an effort to meet new people and your business will grow.
It's so funny because it's so simple, but really, if I think about somebody right now who's struggling, maybe they're frozen up in their business, I bet that they're not meeting new people.
Good chance, yeah.
Like there's just a really good chance that they're sitting in front of their desk, frozen up, not really doing what they said they're supposed to be doing, and then they're finding something to do that's going to be a distraction, but it's not going to be intentionally going out and meeting new people.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge deal, especially hearing from somebody like you that has such a big database, who takes care of so many people, to hear you say like, I wake up and my priority is meet new people.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And, and there's times where I don't, and there's times where I do. And, I went golfing with 2 clients and they brought somebody, and now I have a new person that I'm helping find investment properties. So it's like, it's just little things like that. And you do enough of that and it's gonna build and build. And then after, in time, you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to go do those things unless you're trying to get to a certain stage in your life. But I'm not like every day, I'm not like, today I'm going to meet somebody. I think that way, and there's times where I do.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think just watching you have become that guy. Because we've gone golfing once. Do you remember how that turned out?
Not so good for myself.
But just watching you interact, it's not like, I mean, you were golfing with us and you were very present, but here's this person over here, and you strike up a conversation with them, here's the gal behind the counter. Just this whole, like, I'm here to talk to people and interact with people and make friends.
Yeah.
And there's something about, it's almost like the compound effect.
Yes.
You know, you're not out like, I'm going to talk to 10 people today, although somebody might need to do that. But if I go out and I talk to 3, and then tomorrow I talk to 3, and I talk to 3 more, and I talk to 5 more, and this is just who I've become, man, you get to the end of a month, you've talked to a lot of new people.
Absolutely. And real estate is one of those things that when you mention that you're in real estate, it intrigues people.
Oh, for sure.
They just want to know more, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the perfect conversation starter. Whether you're waiting in line at a Starbucks, whatever it is. Like the minute you mention you do real estate, people seem to have questions.
Well, they do, absolutely.
And you just got to build on that. And, you know, hey, offer to send them free market reports, anything like that. You're not trying to sell them on anything right away. You're just trying to start that relationship.
Yeah, I love that, because the reality is, if we zoom out for a second, we actually don't sell real estate.
Yeah.
That's not the gig. Real estate sells itself. Like, I've never talked somebody into actually buying or selling a house. Like, they have their own intrinsic motivation.
Absolutely.
What we're selling is, are we the right person to guide them through this process?
Yeah.
Right, and that's all about it. Every year, the National Association of Realtor comes out. You know, they do their survey of home buyers and sellers, and every single year, without fail, for like the last 30 years, the number one thing that home buyers and sellers want in a real estate agent is trust.
Yes.
I want to trust you.
Yeah.
And so you can't put that on the back of your card. Well, it turns out, like, look at my business card. It says trustworthy, right? Like, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? But what does work is when people experience you, and they get this idea of like, hey, this person's not out to get me. This person, you know, genuinely cares about me, cares about my family. It starts establishing trust. And now if we layer on this professionalism of like, I know what the heck I'm doing, I can actually help guide you through this process, or through, you know, developing your land, or just whatever the thing is. There's a relational trust, and then there's a professional trust on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's what people want. Like, that's it.
100%. There's been times where I felt like maybe the trust is during a transaction, like there's no trust. You got to have that tough conversation right then.
Yeah.
Because once the trust goes away, it you know, either A, the transaction's not going to go great, and you're probably never going to hear from that person again. But it's like, just have that hard conversation right off the get-go. Why is there a trust issue here?
Yeah.
Can we get to the bottom of it? Can we correct it? Because it's important. It's one of their biggest purchases of their lives. You know, and it's, you know, a lot of industries, especially when they're commission-based, they have kind of a bad rep. It's like, they're just trying to sell me something, right? They're just trying to put me in this car. They're just trying to put me in this house. I'm not that way. I tell them from the get-go, I will not recommend something to you unless I would do it myself personally.
Yeah.
And I think they once they hear it and then they see it during the transaction, you know, they believe it. And that's right there. I think it just cements just a great relationship, that a good foundation to build off of.
Yeah. I was thinking, years ago, I heard Dave Ramsey speak at a real estate conference, and he said something that to me was super profound, and that was, as real estate professionals, you work with people when they're not at their best. Yeah. And the light bulb just went off, because people are being displaced, or they're about ready to get on the hook for a huge load of debt.
Yeah.
Something. And so this whole idea of trust is so important, I think, because number one is they're in a very emotional place, and so trust is on a razor's edge, even if you're incredibly trustworthy.
Yes.
Right. For some, more for some than others, but also situationally, we are dealing with, if we're representing a seller, we're representing with, there's a buyer on the other side, and there's another agent, and there's lenders, and there's title companies, all these other people, and so we are leading through this whole transaction where there's just a lot of unknowns, and there can be situational loss of trust that's not even directed to us, but we take the brunt of it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. We wear many hats.
Yeah, we do, and man, I've taken it on the chin, because, I remember one time I almost got fired because a home inspector that worked for the buyer's side, I was representing the seller, left lights on in the house. Whew. And I just got torn apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm so sorry. That won't ever happen again.
Yeah.
Just You just take it on the chin. So what do? Take it on the chin, right?
Yeah.
But it was the only way to establish trust is like, it's like, well, let me tell you how all of this works. And like that person they didn't work for me. And it's no, like you just own it, you take it on the chin, and you continue the trust relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, even if it's myself or one of my team members, if we, we're not sensing the transactions going smooth for whatever reason, right? There's so many different things that have to go right for you not to take it on the chin. So the one thing I always tell people is like, focus on that relationship, right? Like, don't focus on like, well, I'll just pay for their appliances or I'll just do this. Focus on the relationship. Everything else will work itself out. Yeah. And I think it's helped a lot. And I want to continue to look at it that way because I'm not just trying to sell them that one house. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to sell them multiple houses and everybody they know.
Totally.
So do the right thing, focus on taking care of your client, everything else will work itself out.
Yeah. So when you look at the future of real estate, so I don't like doing the prediction game, but we did it in one of our last episodes, so here we go. What do you see for guys like you that are the relationship database-driven guys?
I think during a market like this, I think we can thrive during this time. I think in the future, who knows? I don't know. There's teams that are able to build good databases doing internet leads and kind of the Sphere model. We were unable to really do well with the internet leads and things like that. So I don't know how well those things will do in the future. I do know that the relationship side of things and building the trust, to me, is going to be the future of this industry. Yeah. Because there's going to be so many different things, so many different apps for them to use, so many different things that'll help them save money, but they may not have the trust in those things, so they may revert back to you if you do a good job.
Yeah. It's when we talk about technology stuff, it gets there's these broad strokes where we talk about like Amazon, you talk about AI, and and everything just gets clumped in, and the real estate gets thrown in the middle of all that. Like it's inevitable that real estate just gets displaced, and there's no need for a real estate agent. And I think about that, and I think anything that's high stakes, high money, all of that stuff, even high experience, like when it comes to a vacation, people are willing to pay for a guide. Yes. To pay like another human. Yes. to be able to help facilitate that. I don't know that in the future they will be willing to pay just any human.
I agree with that.
A human that can genuinely show relationship and show professionalism and deliver value, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, we've all started out somewhere in this industry, right? Like when I first started in real estate, everything I did wasn't A grade. Like it's, right. I was making mistakes on contracts, things like that. So you got to learn through those and fight through those. But I think it's going to be more important to be an educated professional, making sure you're educating yourself on not only the industry, but the contracts and things like that, because those things are going to matter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And when you have, I don't know, what do we have, like 2,500 agents in our, association now, it's like, that's a lot of competition. So how are you going to stick out?
Right. Yeah. And I think just the idea of meeting people nonstop all the time, building a genuine relationship, adding and growing to your professionalism, it doesn't have to be more complicated. And I think the idea of complicating things makes us feel good, like we're finding some unique special knowledge, yeah. Right? Like I found the secret, I found the hack. I'm like, the only people that I know that have found the hack are people that are selling the hack.
Yeah.
Because they're not actually doing the thing anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm the king of overcomplicating, which right? Like it's so funny that like just listening to and a lot of the guys on your podcast I've known and I've kind of grown up with in this industry, just listening to some of the challenges that they've kind of overcome and where they're at in their business now, I'm like, oh, well, that's where I'm at now, so I can't wait.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like we all go through similar stuff, and I think that like I said, we overcomplicate things. In real estate, you really don't need to overcomplicate it. You can be successful by whatever your level of success is, or whatever you want to be as your success, it's like you can get there by just doing some simple things.
Yeah, I think there's maybe an internal pressure sometimes that we have to overcomplicate it because it makes us feel like we're providing more value. And I see like the fitness industry do this.
Yeah.
Right. You have some fitness influencers and they make getting in shape so almost like impossible because you have to figure out these 50 supplements in the exact right measure for your body, and you need to do these things, and do I need intermittent fast or not? And all of a sudden there's this whole unbelievable complexity that can only be navigated with them.
Yes.
Right? And I think about that and I think, well, number one, none of it's true. It's all BS.
100%.
It's just total BS. But the other thing is that there's an attraction to that I think is a trap. And ultimately, if you're the person trying to provide the value, the trap is you freeze up.
Yes.
Right? And if it's really as simple as if I zoom out and I meet lots of people, I build great relationships, and I take care of those people with their real estate needs, could it actually be that simple?
Yes.
Yeah, and you've proven it over and over and over again for the last 15 years.
It can. Now, I might have challenges to where, like, if I want to sell 1,000 homes a year, I'm going to have challenges, sure. Right? It's going to take time to get there. So it just depends on what your goals are, and just making sure you have the right guidance. Hiring a coach, mentor, whatever help you get there. But I think overall, just conversations I've had with agents in our office, or classes that I've taught, it's like, you hear the same things from a lot of people, and a lot of it is we just overcomplicate things. And for me myself, it's like, I don't know how many times I've tried finding the easy button.
Yeah.
in real estate, like knowing like, hey, it's not there.
So much work trying to find the easy button.
But I'm like, I'm going to be the one that finds it.
Yes. We'll spend all my time finding the easy button.
Yeah. So there's
Seems like a lot of work.
I take the wrong road, and I'm like, oh, here we go. We got to backtrack. But it's same. Those are same mistakes that we've all made, or we continue to make, and it's just understanding like, don't overcomplicate it. Real estate is a simple process. Yeah. You just gotta know that you have to work. You're not gonna, there's not gonna be an app that you download and all of a sudden you're gonna start selling a bunch of homes. Like, that's just not the way it works.
It's not, and we don't want it to be that in any area of life, because the reality is the only things that pay well in life are things that create a gap between what people are willing to do and not willing to do. Yeah. If it was as simple as just downloading an app and it cost you nothing, you didn't have to become a professional, you didn't have to work hard, all that stuff, then everybody would do it. By the way, the problem with our industry for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So now they're starting this gap again, and people are looking for the easy button, but the reality is that this gap is going to allow professionals really to shine.
Absolutely.
And I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely. And the people that, the agents that were selling, 20, 25 homes when the market was really booming, and now they're at like 3, they just need to make an adjustment. Like, now they need to work hard. Like, it's not over, you just need to get back to the basics and do what helped before things were just handed to you.
Right.
And you'll get back there. But I think we think, and I'm on, several text threads with other realtors that, think the sky's just falling, and it's like, well, but you can make it through this. Like,
yes.
It's, you're just gonna have to work hard.
Yeah.
And real estate, you're providing a service, and there's always going to be people that need that service.
Yeah, I remember when I went through the very hardest period of my life in business, which happened to be the hardest period of life in my whole life. It was during the downturn, but I was so broke for other reasons that I didn't realize how hard the market was, because everything was just the worst.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things I started telling myself, everybody is, not everybody, but a lot of people around the coffee pot are saying it's the end of the world. There's no business. Like, it's, they're losing all of their brand new cars that they just bought because the last year was great, all that stuff. And I went and I remember pulling up the metrics, and it was a very, like, in the entire state of Alaska, there were 90 transactions in January.
Oh.
It was rough, right?
Real rough.
But here's the thing I started telling myself, or asking myself. I asked myself the question, did I sell 90 homes in January? The answer was no. So I told myself, it's not the market, it's me.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just, that was ultimately what became part of our belief system, which is there's always more than enough. And that is like, if I look and January says 0, I have a problem with the market.
Yeah.
Right? If the answer is not 0, like if there were 90 homes that sold and I sold 2 of them, me not hitting my goals is not the market's issue, it's mine.
Yes.
And I just had to, I had to grab a hold of that, because anything else, any of the victim mindset that was there was just going to bury me, because I was so close to being buried as it was.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's a true thing that happens in a lot of people's careers. They just need to step back, zoom out, and not play the victim, and understand if homes are selling, why are they not using you?
Yes, it's a hard question, but it's a very real, very good question.
Yeah, and we've all had to ask ourselves hard questions during our careers, right? Like, I mean, I have, you have, any successful person has, and you just have to be able to own up to it and say, you know what, tomorrow's gonna be a different day. It's not over. Like, I think people give up pretty easily, and they're like, well, I'm not making any money. Okay, well, at one point you were. So what were you doing at those times that can help you now? Yeah. And sometimes, just like I said, getting back to the basics of it's just a good start. Yeah. And like, okay, well, I went down the wrong path. I'm backtracking. Now I'm going to go right down the right path.
Yeah. That backtracking piece is really interesting, because there's so much shame that can build up, or embarrassment. Yeah. And it's like, man, do I really have to go back and backtrack? Right? Everybody's going to see me pulling back, making these cuts, doing all this stuff. Newsflash: people actually don't care about you as much as you think they do, right? They're worried about their own crap.
Yeah, there's not many industries that have egos like real estate, right? Like, I mean, you go from selling, you go to have a year of selling 35 homes down to 5, and it's our ego that gets in the way.
Yeah.
And there's so many little corrections that can be made.
Yeah. Well, something Chase tells us all the time, like your ego is the biggest line item on your P&L.
Yes.
And man, that's true.
That is true. That's powerful.
And it doesn't have to be true, which is the cool thing.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I mean, and I know, like, there's times where I have an ego and I'm just like, and it's hard not to in some cases, but that is a powerful statement.
Yeah. I love it. Man, you have added so much value. I really appreciate the time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
I've said a lot of things over and over, but that's just the way my business is. I try to keep it as simple as possible, because I do overcomplicate things, and I know that if I can just stick with the basic things that have worked and helped me get to where I'm at, things are going to be good. So it's, I focus on my database, because during these rough times, it's going to help me get through.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just keep doing those things. It's going to help me get through these rough times. So I would say, don't be scared to start over. Don't be scared to really start. Even if you haven't talked to a client in 6 months, call them. Just say hi.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Don't think it's too late. I haven't talked to that person for 6 months. That's not true. They want to hear from you.
Yeah, they have not been sitting there waiting for your call for 6 months at the cost of all other relationships. Yeah. Like, if only Jon would call, then,
Yeah, just give them a call. Yeah. Say hi.
Love it. Dude, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Love being here.
All right, guys, that is our Master Series interview with the one and only Jon Walker. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career. If you need anything from us, reach out at rmgagentpodcast.com. And this episode is a great one to like and to share with other people that need a little bit of encouragement. Take care, everybody.